Hi, hello, happy Friday. I hope you're good. Today I'm here with another book recommendations. Today it's going to be on underrated books, though I say that loosely only because I know that maybe some of these books have bigger audiences in other areas in the world perhaps, but here on BookTube there are a lot of books that I see talked about, very popular books, and then there are books that I love so much that are not talked about as much, and I feel that they deserve a lot more attention because they're just so good and I want more people to read them and to be exposed to them and just to enjoy them. So today I'm going to talk about all the books that are underrated to me here on BookTube. So let's get started. The first book I want to talk about is Miss Subways by David Duchovny. Now I'm not sure if you recognize that name, but David Duchovny is Fox Mulder on The X-Files. He is the actor David Duchovny. But David Duchovny is also a writer. He is a writer and he is a talented writer, might I add. And Miss Subways is his most recent work that I'm aware of. And this is so strange. He writes a lot of strange things, but it's strange in a good way. I don't want to say too much about this book, but let's say it's a romantic comedy that's set in New York City that has to do with gods, and I'm not going to say anything else. Maybe there is some second chances going on in this, and I don't want to say anything else because I don't want to spoil anything. It is a strange, odd little story, but it's cute and I love it and it's quirky and I just love the dialogue, and it's written by David Duchovny, who I adore also much because The X-Files is one of my favorite TV shows, so I love anything that David puts out into the world, but I think it's underrated because I don't hear anyone talk about this book ever. So Miss Subways. Next, I have The Maw by Taylor Zajonc. I'm not sure how to say his name, I'm sorry. This is a science fiction-y thriller, sort of horror, not really, not horror, but I mean, it's more of a survival story than anything. This is about a historian who goes to Tanzania and he ends up joining this crew to explore this cave for historical reasons. And while they're exploring the cave, something happens and they get stuck inside and crazy stuff happens from there. Possibly supernatural elements are thrown in. I'm not going to go too much with that because I don't want to give away spoilers, but this, if you love books about survival and about that are just set in spooky areas, because this takes place in a cave and they get stuck, you know, down in the cave, and that just freaks me out because closed environments just make me squeamish a little bit. So that's what this book really focuses on, and it's so good. This was so gripping and page turning, and I just needed to know if these people were gonna live, if they were gonna die, blah blah blah. It's really good. I don't hear anyone ever talk about this, but it is a fun read and I highly recommend it. And then we have The Sacred Lies of Minnow Bly by Stephanie Oakes. I will talk about this book until the day I die because it's just so good. This is a young adult book that follows this young girl who was just put into this juvenile detention center because she was a part of a cult, and we follow her as she tells us the story of what it was like while she was in this cult, because I think she's one of the only survivors when this cult kind of went down and was caught and whatnot. And the biggest thing about this book is that she doesn't have any hands. She lost her hands in some way. Someone chopped off her hands, and you kind of find out what she went through while being a part of this cult, and it is one of the most saddest things I've ever read in my life, but it's also beautiful, and it gives you this kind of light at the end of the tunnel, this ray of hope, sort of, I guess you could say, and it's just, I cannot recommend this enough. It's just so good. Please pick it up. Next, I have A Dirty Job by Christopher Moore. Now, I don't want to say that this book in particular is that underrated overall because Christopher Moore is a really well-known author and he is such a hilarious author. He's so funny, but I feel like not a lot of people talk about him on BookTube, and A Dirty Job is so funny. It's so good. It's about this man who is recently a widow, and he finds out that he has to be death. Like, he gets the job of being death, and he owns this little pawn shop, and we follow him, his daughter, and just these random characters as he has to go and collect souls, and it's so good. And then I don't want to say anything else because, again, spoilers, but it's so good. You need to read it if you want a really good comedy that just, you know, has a sprinkle of the supernatural and just weird, quirky characters. You will love this. The next two books that I have are by the same author, who is Keely Hutton. She is so underrated. First, I have Soldier Boy, which is I want to say young adult, middle grade. It is a realistic fiction account on Ricky Anwar's life as he was a kid, forced to be a child soldier during the Ugandan Civil War, and we follow him as he tells us how he was forced, how he lost his family, everything that he went through. It is such a traumatic, horrifyingly sad story. It's so sad, and it's such a hard read to get through. You have to put it down a lot, but it's so important to read, and it's just one of those books that it's beautiful. It's beautifully written, it's beautifully done, but it's just such a sad story. But I think it's important that other people pick up this book. The other book that she's written is called Secret Soldiers. This is about during World War I, when there were actually kid soldiers. You know, kids shouldn't be a part of the war, but they were, and we follow a specific story. This one isn't based on a true story that I'm aware of, but we follow these kids as they help along with this certain mission that I don't want to give away because you should read the book yourself. It's really, really good. Both of these are so good. Keely Hutton does such a great job on bringing to life stories that you don't really hear about, so I just really love her, and I wish more people would read her books. Go do that now. Next, I have Now is the Hour by Tom Spanbauer. This is one of the most beautiful books I've ever read. It made me cry so many times. It's so good. I wish more people would read this. I would say if you're a fan of The Perks of Being a Wallflower, you would probably really like this because it has that same coming of age aspect within this book, and our character, we follow him as he deals with what it means to kind of accept who he is, and just think of The Perks of Being a Wallflower with a little bit more of LGBTQ kind of representation within this. That's a lot more prevalent in this, and it's just so well written. It's a masterpiece. I love this so much. I wish more people would read it. And then I have a fun horror slasher. This is Kill River by Cameron Rubik. This is actually, I believe, independently published, but it's so good, so good. Imagine 80s and a slasher movie set at a water park. That's basically what this is, and we follow these teenage characters as they try to survive while they're being stalked by this murderer that wants to kill them, and it's so good. It's so fun. It's basically just a 80s horror movie but in book form, and I love it so much. I wish more people would read it. A lot of people do read this on BookTube, I think, but I just want more people to read it, so if you haven't, you should really check it out. Plus, it's independent, so go support a indie author. I think you should do that. And then I have a sci-fi. This is Semiosis by Sue Burke. This came out a couple years ago, I want to say, not that long ago. This is a story about humans colonizing a new planet, and on this planet a lot of the plant life is sentient. So it's about the humans and plants kind of trying to communicate with one another, trying to benefit from one another, trying to coexist with one another, and it's very, very interesting. It's written in different sections to where you see different generations of the humans as they live on this planet, and I thought it was really, really good. This book does have its faults, but I just think it's so fascinating, so I really like this one and I highly recommend it. And the last book that I want to recommend is not necessarily underrated because it's Stephen King, but I think that this is one of Stephen King's most underrated books just because it was written under his pseudonym Richard Bachman, and not enough people read this book. You all need to read this book because it's one of his best, honestly, I think so. And that's The Long Walk. The Long Walk is similar in essence to The Hunger Games, where you have this sort of spectacle going on and all of these people are participating and only one can win and the rest kind of die. This one is about a walk, essentially. All of these guys volunteer for this walk, and when you enter, you consistently just have to continue walking, and if you stop, you get 3 warnings and then you're shot down, and it's so good. The characters are very interesting. The story is just despite them just walking the entire time, there's just still so much going on, and I think that this is Stephen King's, at least one of his best written books, just because, I don't know, I just think it's so good. It's just so good. But yeah, those are all for right now, my recommendations for underrated books that I think are underrated, but in the comments below, I would love to know your thoughts on any of these books if you've read them, but also, most importantly, leave a recommendation for a underrated book that you've read that you think is underrated and you think that everyone should read, because I want recommendations, because I love reading books that are really well known and popular, but I love getting to read something that's just so good that not enough readers are picking up. So yeah, I think that's all I have to say for today. I hope you guys have a great weekend, and I will see you next week with another video. Bye!